Hey, what's going on? This is not what we discussed. Quiet down. I don't want to drop out at my son's wedding. Well then, I won't come. This is an unthinkable incident that occurred at my brother-in-law's wedding. My name is Caroline. I'm a 30-year-old working housewife. I married my husband Steven 5 years ago. We're thinking it would be nice to have children at some point, but for now, we've decided to concentrate on our careers. I was raised in a single-mother household. My father passed away due to an illness when I was in elementary school. It turned out to be cancer. To pay for the high medical expenses, my mother worked tirelessly, and unfortunately, it took a toll on her health. Even after that, she kept working to raise me, but by the time I was in middle school, she could hardly work. Her health had seriously deteriorated, and she could only imagine to work part-time a few days a week. But my mother, who had lost her husband and had no other relatives, had no choice but to work to raise me. I wanted to go to high school, but the desire to help my mother was stronger, so I decided to work after graduating from middle school. However, when my homeroom teacher found out about this during a career guidance session, he naturally opposed my decision. Caroline, it's going to be tough for you to start working right after middle school. The future options will be limited. At least, you should consider high school. But I want to start working as soon as possible to ease the burden on my mom. Caroline, there are scholarships available now, and you can go to night school or take correspondence courses while working during the day. There are many options, so think it over. I'll return this career guidance form to you, so please write at least 2 other career options besides getting a job, and hand it in within the week. I reluctantly took the form returned by my homeroom teacher and decided to research on the internet using my mother's cell phone when I got home. When I started typing in the search window, I saw search stories that my mother had probably looked up. High school scholarships, financial assistance for non-taxable households, high school welfare benefits. I was curious, so I decided to search for them. Then I found out that there are indeed scholarships and various other systems available, just as the teacher had said. And for households on welfare, it seems that money needed for school supplies and tuition fees are also provided. I might be able to go to high school without burdening my mom. I was not entirely uninterested in further studies to begin with, so I began to hope a little. I decided to compare each system and opened the search history. And below the pages I had searched, there was something incredible. There were histories of question and answer sites and city websites my mother had searched for. Search history showed signs of keyword searches for welfare application, conditions to receive welfare, what to do when denied welfare, and not allowed to apply for welfare. These search histories seemed like cries from my mother's heart to me. Perhaps my mother had researched for my sake, learned about welfare, but was turned down at the counter and couldn't receive an application. Seeing this, I just couldn't think or research about going to high school anymore. And then the weekend came. When my homeroom teacher asked me, "Have you thought about your career path?" I replied that I simply couldn't consider going to high school. As expected, my teacher looked dissatisfied. Though no further guidance came during that moment, my mother received a call from the school in the evening. After hearing the situation from my teacher, she confronted me. "Why are you thinking about getting a job? If it's about money, I'll figure something out. Please, just go to high school." I responded, "But Mom, you know you've been denied welfare, right? I know going to high school costs more than a scholarship can cover." "How did you know?" "I saw it when I borrowed your cell phone. Since Dad passed away, it's been just you and me. What am I supposed to do if something happens to you? Please don't push yourself anymore. I'll work once I graduate to make up for all the hard work I've put in." Tears streamed down my mother's cheeks at my words. The person who was probably the most worried about my education and our finances was my mother herself. Sobbing, she hugged me and kept repeating, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Thus, due to my strong will, I decided to work right after graduating from middle school instead of proceeding to high school. However, finding a job as a middle school graduate was very difficult, as most job postings required at least a high school or an associate's degree. Even if the job didn't require a certain level of education, an ordinary middle school graduate with no qualifications would likely be rejected during the paper screening process. Eventually, I ended up working part-time until 6 p.m. after graduating from middle school. One day, I was called in for a meeting by my boss, who proposed that I work as a full-time employee once I reached the age equivalent to a high school graduate. According to my boss, my diligent work ethic despite my young age had been noticed. There were some conditions to meet, but I gladly accepted the offer. Afterwards, I fulfilled the conditions set by my boss and was promoted to a full-time position in April of the year I turned 19. Despite many hardships, my life was sailing smoothly. It was around this time that I met my current husband, who I was introduced to as a business partner. We got closer through work meetings and began to discuss personal matters. He also lost his father in a traffic accident and was raised by a single mother, similar to my situation. We clicked instantly over our shared experiences, which eventually led to a relationship and marriage. When we went to meet his mother, she initially welcomed me, but turned hostile when she learned that I was a middle school graduate. I can't believe you didn't even go to high school. We may be a single mother family, but I managed to send Steven and his brother Robert to high school and college. Even if it required scholarships, it was possible to attend high school. What was your mother doing? Mom, that's no way to talk. Our circumstances were due to an accident, and we also had compensation from the other party. Caroline's family has its own issues. It's not fair to compare like that. If you do your research and follow the proper procedures, there are many grants and supports available. No offense, but it makes me think either she had poor grades that prevented her from going to high school, or both mother and daughter are simply ignorant. Either way, she's no good as your wife. I can't approve of a marriage with such a woman. The harsh words I received had left me deeply frustrated. My brother-in-law, Robert, had mocked me incessantly for only having a middle school education, making acceptance by my husband's family seemingly impossible. Eventually, we defied their approval and got married, sort of eloping, and had a private ceremony. Given the circumstances surrounding our marriage, my husband and I found ourselves largely estranged from his family. Nothing improved over time. Our relationship was merely superficial, limited to basic greetings. Then, one day, we received a phone call from his family. Hello, Stephen. Robert is getting married. They are planning a wedding ceremony, and we were wondering if you and Caroline could attend. Just like that? Out of the blue? What a turn of events. After treating Caroline so coldly all this time, you guys sure are feeling generous now, aren't you? I do apologize for that, but Robert's bride-to-be insists she wants blessings from all the family members. Please, for the sake of your mother. Stephen and I discussed it at length and decided that if this could be a chance to mend relations, we would attend the wedding as his mother wished. On the day of the ceremony, my husband was asked to come earlier than planned to help out, so we ended up going separately. Although they told me it was okay to arrive just in time for the start, I decided to go a bit earlier so I could greet my in-laws. However, when I arrived at Hotel A as instructed on the invitation, there was no sign of a wedding taking place, and there was no one else around just for a wedding. So I decided to ask the hotel staff, "Excuse me, I have this invitation for a wedding here?" The staff member gave me a puzzled look and said, "Could you please wait a moment?" and went to the back, leaving me to wait for a while. After waiting for a bit, the staff returned with a response I could not have anticipated. "I'm sorry, but there are no weddings scheduled at our hotel today." "What? But it clearly states this hotel's name, right here." I double-checked the invitation with the staff, but the hotel's name printed there was undoubtedly correct. Just then, my phone rang. It was Stephen. "Caroline, where are you?" "I'm at the desk of Hotel A. Stephen, where are you? They are telling me there's no wedding here today." "Why are you there? Didn't you get the call from my mom this morning? The schedule and venue have changed." "What? I didn't receive any such call from your mom." "No way. Hold on, I'll get there as soon as possible. Where is it and when does it start?" "It's at the chapel in Hotel B. The ceremony starts in 20 minutes, but I don't think you can make it in time from there." The location Stephen gave me was on the opposite side from Hotel A, past our home. The turn of events led me to believe this was his mother's doing. "Stephen, can you hand the phone to your mom?" I decided to confront her directly over the phone. "Hello, Caroline. Why are you calling at a time like this? We're quite busy." "Don't play dumb. What's going on? I just got a call from Stephen and the story doesn't match up. The time and location of the ceremony are totally different from what we were told. And you lied about contacting me. What are you trying to do?" "You're such a nuisance. Even if you're not the brightest, try to read the room a little. Your presence would spoil a special occasion like this, and it's embarrassing to have a dropout, so don't come." Fine. Suppressing my frustration, I reached out to a certain person. Meanwhile, in the groom's waiting room at the wedding venue, Stephen was having a heated argument with his mother and brother. Mom, how can you say that to Caroline? And Robert, why was the content of the invitation sent to our house different from the others? Were you deceiving us from the start? Huh? What are you talking about? As long as you're here, everything will look fine. And it won't be a problem even if the dropout isn't here, right? Don't you dare! Stop belittling my wife any further. Stephen, Robert, both of you, stop it. This is right before that important ceremony. Who do you think caused this massive bride harassment at this important ceremony? At that moment, there was a knock on the waiting room door. Outside the door were Robert's bride-to-be and her parents. I heard that you declined Caroline's attendance. Robert, can you explain why this has happened? There's a reason for this. It's embarrassing, but my brother's wife only has a middle school education, so she's not the kind of person who should be here. That's right. My eldest son's wife, Caroline, is a dropout. But my son went against my wishes and married her. She and her mother lack common sense and are a disgrace to our family. It's too embarrassing to invite such a daughter-in-law here. At the words of Robert and his mother, the bride covered her mouth with her hand, and her parents exchanged glances with clouded expressions. Robert, even if it's true, there are things that are acceptable and things that are not acceptable in society. The bride's father said so, showing the screen of his smartphone. What? How did you get a hold of that? What the bride's father showed to everyone present was the image of the invitation sent from the in-laws to us. Actually, the bride's father is my former boss. Although he is no longer my direct boss due to a transfer, he was the one who did everything he could to help me get promoted, and I owe him a lot. Also, the bride had once worked part-time at my workplace, so I was acquainted with her. It seems that you and your son have a misunderstanding. My daughter and I know Caroline very well, and she's not the person you describe. She was a child who struggled with her family environment, but she's always been a dutiful daughter who loves her mother. She never forgets to be considerate to those below her, and she took good care of my daughter when she was working part-time for work experience. What? But... As Robert stammered, this time the bride spoke. What my father says is true. When I was in high school, I used to work part-time at his office. Being young and naive, I wasn't well liked by my coworkers. But Caroline always stood up for me. She also helped me when I was being bothered by a difficult customer, and she always took the time to explain things that I didn't understand at work. My father and I are truly grateful to Caroline, and to think that someone would treat our benefactor in such a way. At the bride's words, her mother-in-law was shaking with anxiety. She began to shout, obviously at the end of her patience. Well, education is important, isn't it? I made sure my sons were well educated, so I wouldn't be ashamed to introduce them anywhere. Even made sure they graduated from college. And in this day and age, to only have a middle school education? Unless there's a very good reason, it's expected to at least graduate from high school. If they can't do that, it's simply a lack of effort on the part of both the individual and the parent. There was indeed a very good reason. At least for Caroline and her parents. And she, having joined the workforce right after middle school, worked hard. Didn't you hear from Caroline herself? She acquired her high school equivalency diploma as part of the requirements for her promotion. Actually, I took a high school equivalency exam as a requirement to be promoted to a full-time position. The exam covered the content equivalent to 3 years of middle school and 1 year of high school. As I had been away from academic studies, I had forgotten even some of the things I had learned. I studied between work and after returning home, sometimes getting help from others, and somehow managed to prepare in time for the exam. The content was mostly basic, and I passed with flying colors. A high school equivalency exam is a national examination, and passing it means the government recognizes you as having the same level of academic abilities as a high school graduate. Can you please stop referring to Caroline as a dropout from now on? It's unpleasant. And I can't possibly allow my precious daughter to marry into such a horrible, abusive family. It's fortunate that the wedding reception and the registration of the marriage haven't happened yet. We'd like to pretend this wedding never existed. Meanwhile, at the wedding venue, unaware of the drama unfolding behind the scenes, the guests were anxiously waiting for the reception to start. However, as time passed with no sign of the ceremony beginning, the venue staff began to hurry about. An uneasy atmosphere began to spread, and the guests started to feel suspicious. Then, a solemn voice came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. Unfortunately, the wedding scheduled for today has been cancelled due to unavoidable circumstances. The bride's father has a message for you. I'm the bride's father, as introduced. Despite your efforts to adjust the schedule for today's occasion, I deeply apologize for the sudden turn of events, and I am sorry to inform you that due to the discovery of malicious harassment from the groom's side, the marriage has been called off. I take full responsibility for not noticing this until now. The reception has been cancelled, and we will proceed with a simple dinner. All the wedding gifts will be returned, so please be assured. I am terribly sorry for the inconvenience. After finishing his speech, he bowed deeply. How dare you! I was looking forward to this day so much! The discontented mother-in-law stormed the venue, causing a commotion, but was restrained by the staff and dragged off to a side room. The guests left at the reception venue found themselves in an awkward predicament. Some, in a spirit of might as well, carried on with their meals, while others, made uncomfortable or feeling unwell by the incident, decided to leave. Stephen, being a member of the family, went around apologizing to the guests and thanking the bride's father before heading home early. This debacle was caused by Stephen's family and resulted in a broken engagement. As a result, Robert and the rest of his family decided to cover all the costs, including the reception fee, the transportation costs for the guests, and an additional compensation for the bride's side. Due to this incident, my mother-in-law started receiving judgmental looks from relatives. Robert, who had invited his colleagues to the wedding, also found his standing at work had deteriorated. When we got home, my husband apologized to me repeatedly. Caroline, I'm really sorry about my family's behavior, he said. It's okay, it's not your fault, Stephen. I want to make things right. I've decided to cut all ties with my family over this incident. I'm utterly disgusted. We live quite close to my mom's house, so how about we move closer to your mom and start over in a new place? If it's okay with you. We could live with your mom. Really? Thank you, Stephen. I agreed to Stephen's proposal, and we started to live with my mother. Our interactions with the bride's family have resumed, surprisingly in a pleasant way, all thanks to that chaotic reception. Life is unpredictable, isn't it?